Welcome, everyone. I'm Chris Dobbin, and I'm thrilled to bring you today to amplify your brand, the ultimate live on being a powerful brand in today's digital age. Along with my fellow friend there and colleague and branding expert, Samoa, we're here to share your expertise and help our brand go to the next level. So whether you're an entrepreneur, a small business owner, a marketing professional, or someone with a personal brand, or you're thinking of launching, this live stream is packed with practical insights and strategies that will help you amplify your brand. And hopefully stand out in that digital landscape we've talked about. So please get ready, take some notes, take things you learn from today into action, because by the end of this live stream, we're going to give you some clear roadmaps on how to build a brand that truly resonates with your target audience. So thanks for joining us today, and let's find another way to amplify your brand. Welcome, Samoa. Today, our topic of choice, we've gone for I've just added it to the stream there. There we go. There it is on the screen. It's what are the best words to describe your brand's personality, which is obviously defining and communicating the unique character and identity of your brand. But how would you look at it?
Well, this is a key component, because he who has a purpose can withstand almost anything. He who lacks one will fall for almost just about everything. Purpose is the backbone of everything you do, personally, professionally, in relationships, in business. This is going to be a charged session, and it's going to be the second one on this topic, and I'm very looking forward to getting right into it.
Yeah, so I guess we'll just work through what this is all about, but I will talk about briefly why we do this. And each week we are working through the P8 system that we apply to amplifying your brand. And currently we're in the purpose area of what we're doing, and we're working through some of the key steps that we've taken through. So if you're watching this for the first time today, please look at the other episodes as they lead into each step as we go through it. And as I said, there are reasons why this particular episode has happened, is because, as you'll see on the next slide, we have worked through a whole bunch of things. Oh, hang on, no, we've got you've put this funky slide in here. There you go. So obviously we're looking at the best words to describe your brand's personality, and is that supposed to be in there? Yeah. So business backstory can be a positive impact, engage, trust, and connect with your target in several ways. So here's our process on obviously the brand personality and its words. We're going to start with self-reflection. So we're going to begin by examining the brand's mission, values, and core principles, which is what we've touched on in previous episodes. So you need to consider the essence of what your brand stands for and the emotions it aims to evoke in its audience. So this self-reflection lays the foundation for identifying the brand's personality traits. And I guess, Sim, I'm going to hand it over to you why self-reflection is something that we need to talk about.
Well, it's
yeah.
It's again a moment where you strip all judgment from this exercise, and the aim of the outcome that you're looking for is to come up with a general sense and direction of what you're about. You as a business, and you as a leader of that business, there are certain things, there are certain traits that you have behaved by, lived by, and those will be the words that define what the core values of your business are to become. And those core values sustain everything else that you do, from your messaging to your approach to treating your customers with a certain something that you do. That is going to define the purpose. And that's why it is so critical for everything that you do as a business, as a brand in the marketplace. So this self-reflection exercise is very crucial, and you need to be able to do it ruthlessly, with love, without judgment.
Yeah, exactly. And it also, as one of the key things there is authenticity in this, because it's no use you just going, well, that's how we want to be. You've got to live and breathe this. So that's why we're talking about self-reflection. It's no use you going out there and saying, I'm going to change my morals, my values, and everything today. It's so deeply ingrained in who you are. It's not going to change in a hurry. And it's the same with brands. You can't just jump ship every day of the week on where you want to take things and what you want to do. You know, we obviously have to move with the market trends and things like that, but that's done in a different way than understanding your brand's personality. That's something that's sort of ingrained deeply in the way that you go about developing a brand.
in fact, your core values, once they help shape your purpose, that purpose then is your navigation system towards those trends and which ones you actually get on or stay away from. That's the entire reasoning for defining your purpose and know what you stand for, because otherwise you're going to be at the whim of the latest trend. You're going to follow the same crowd to the same places, and that's not always a good thing.
That's right. Yeah. So, first place to start when understanding your core value, your brand personality, is looking at self-reflection. So, making understanding of like, what do you want to stand for? What do you represent? And where are you taking your brand? These are things you need to take on board, so that obviously these next steps we're going to work through become a little bit easier, because you've got that foundation. We've talked about this in previous episodes where clients have this as a bouncing board, and when they wanted to go off on a certain tangent, they didn't, because they realized it was moving too far away from what we've just touched on with this values, vision, and obviously core principles. So the next thing, which is really what it's all about, because it actually is always about your target audience and what they are wanting. So you need to understand their preferences. You need to research who they are, look at insights, gather feedback to determine how the brand is currently being perceived, and obviously what traits might resonate with the audience. Aligning the brand's personality and audience desires helps build a stronger connection. And this is something that's changed over the last 20 years. We were touching on this just before we came live, that brands used to be something that the marketing guy could just jump in, come up with something one day, put out a few posters, and the world would start believing that brand's a certain way. It's reversed now. The consumer controls that. They decide how they're feeling about you and how that brand is. And it's partly because of the number of touch points we have available and the amount of research people can do on you before they start doing any business with you.
Absolutely spot on, Chris. That's exactly right. The time for fabricated, picture perfect, polished mission statements and purposes are not necessarily controlled by you anymore. You as a brand. It's the audience that determines how well aligned what you say and what you do is, that create that brand true identity. Because you can plan as much as you can, but if you don't live that, it will be fleshed out in the everyday marketplace living conditions of the business. When you say you're about communication and you shut off the comments on your social media posts, that's not living your purpose. When there is a clear misalignment between what you say is excellence in customer service and the number of reviews that people can find online, that is not living your purpose. So you need to understand who you are, who you want to talk to, and make sure that you align on those values where you can really live by them. And again, it's not about making pretty statements. It's about discovering and really honing in on what you're really strong at. Those will be your core values that help you find the purpose and align that with the people that you want to serve. You're not going to be serving everybody, and that's completely fine. This is something that is very, very important to be okay with and be aware of today. You're not going to be serving everybody. There's more degrees of differentiation and segmentation in the marketplace to rest your brand at peace, that you're not going to be able to serve these many people, but if you serve these many really well, you have a very strong position in the market, because only you can deliver on your values and your purpose that serves that exact kind of audience.
That's right. And also niching down like that also allows you to find your people and keep your communications consistent. And you don't have to have that schizophrenic personality, right? You can be yourself pretty easy if you know why you're turning up and why you're doing that, and also what they're all about. So, and trust me, with social media the way it is these days, you will get the feedback. It will come.
For sure.
And yeah, I'm not just talking about a keyboard warrior there either. Just someone who they make their life living. We're just talking about genuine people. If they get disgruntled enough, they will jump online. They will tell others about you. They will use word of mouth, the old school, down on the local schoolyard. They'll tell others about what's going on, and that's where your brand sits. So, yeah.
Yes.
So That is target audience. So please spend time in this. I think actually, just coming back to that one, you were going to mention a couple of things that we should do to understand your target audience. You were going to mention a couple of software products or approaches, like surveys and things like that we can do. So
I'll save this. Good one, Chris. And I'll save this for a further point coming up ahead. I'm getting better at not revealing everything. All the
I just realized what I've
once.
done, but that's all good. Go with the script. So we'll move to the next one.
On to the next one.
There you go. Jump the gun. There we go. Brand archetype exploration. So exploring and identifying. So explore various brand archetypes, which are symbolic character profiles that represent the different human motivations and desires. The common archetypes include the hero, the innocent, the rebel, the explorer, the sage, and more. So identify your archetype that aligns with your brand values and the target audience that it aspires. Now, we touched on a few archetypes there. If people aren't familiar with archetypes, please reach out to us. We'd love to have a chat to you about what that means and what it means to your brand. But I guess we're going to go a little deeper into this, but only a little bit.
Yes. So brand archetypes, they're 12 if memory serves correctly. And you have certain traits within each one. And the better you know how to identify where you stand in that entire range of 12 possibilities, the better you will become at creating more appealing and precise messaging to talk to your audience. So in a nutshell, very quickly, we have those archetypes with innocent, with sage, explorer, the outlaw, the magician, the hero, the lover, the jester, the everyman, the caregiver, the ruler, and the creator. And we could give you many examples inside of those ones, but this is a further conversation for another time where we'll go into each one of them. Just letting you know that once you identify yourself, you can better target your entire communication according to that archetype you belong to.
Yeah, so I guess also we will talk about examples later on in this and how certain bigger brands have gone about this and understanding who their archetype is. So, but it is clear that if you understand the personality traits of your consumer, then you'll be able to communicate to them better. And it doesn't mean that your brand has to be a chameleon. You still have to stay true to what we touched on at the very beginning. Like
that's exactly right. Yeah.
You just have to find these archetypes that match and marry up with your core values and where you're trying to take the business. And and it doesn't mean you can't attract others. It's just that's what you've got to focus on.
Yeah. It's degrees of knowing thyself, as the commandments go. Know thyself so you can better know who you are talking to. So this is really, really important. The archetypes are a framework of reference for yourself, really.
Yeah, exactly. So the next one to help you understand your brand's personality is brainstorming and word association. So making sure everyone's on this. You need to conduct brainstorming sessions where you get key stakeholders in, you include founders, executives, marketing teams, creative professionals, and if you can include your own clientele, if you've got them actively involved in a community, then get them involved as well, because you want to freely associate the words with objectives, emotions that you believe in, that reflect your brand's personality, and you want to compile a list of potential words to consider and keep coming back to it, but we'll talk about that later. But do you want to talk about this process of brainstorming? Like, why is this important?
It's really interesting what happens when a group of people start rowing into a defined direction, and what happens in the brain as well when you start giving it certain cues and directions. Word association exercises are extremely useful in that sense because they end up they tend to find commonalities at different levels of the organization, and for the brands that have different teams inside its structure, this is ideal. And this is why we're talking about bringing everybody from different strata. And one main group that I forgot to include in that slide is the sales team, the people that are going to make the rubber meet the road. The sales team needs to live this purpose of the brand so they can better communicate to the people that you want to align with, aka your audience. So this is really interesting because conducting several brainstorming sessions in-house at different companies I've worked at, the funny thing is that once everybody has created the friction, compared viewpoints, and discussed where they stand on specific words, they end up defining and sometimes just encapsulating different meanings into the same word that everybody is okay with. Not everybody at all times, but enough people at that given point in time that they are able to encapsulate that value into that word and keep moving forward.
Yeah, yeah. And when you're doing these exercises, not everything has to be fun or funny. Like
No,
it,
no.
like it's a common thing. It's like, we want to be the funny brand or we want to be the most liked brand. That may not be the case. There may be a reason that you have to, push the envelope a little bit, or you have to be a bit edgy.
Yes.
Or I want to be the most authentic and have integrity. Like maybe that's not the case. Like we do have a client at the moment that has asked us to say, look, well, how can we push the envelope? How can we go a little bit risque? How can we communicate in a way that maybe not everyone else is communicating in our industry? And
Yes.
they're looking at that, and I guess that's an example of them understanding that their core values don't need to be morals that need to be questioned. It's more just that they want to break through the barrier of the fact that we're not mundane and boring. We actually have a personality, and we say it how it is. And that's not going to work for every brand, but for them, that's the
exactly it.
example.
That's exactly it. Because the cliche in the example you just mentioned, Chris, right there, is that the cliche being that everybody wants to be different, but the moment being different comes with being a pioneer, saying different things, being in a different position in the marketplace, and start being pointed at by not just the industry peers, but the audience, because they see something different. And we're hardwired to notice the difference. That's why it's called difference. The contrast creates the abnormal among the sames. So it's not just saying I'm different for the sake of being different. It's actually being able to justify that and create that positioning with consolidated information and attitudes that reflect that difference.
Yep, exactly. And when we get into the brand examples later on, you will see reasons for how these big brands have done this really well and why they've done it that way. So really, look, talk to anybody, the cat, dog, whatever, get the ideas down and see what you can come up with, because you just may be surprised by what the marketing team is saying versus what the founders are saying versus the executives, because they're all touch points of different types of clients or client bases, and internal and external, and it gives you feedback. So which I've just gone for there. So I've just jumped into perfectly aligning with internal consensus. So review that list and narrow it down. So the idea here is you discuss the suitability of each word in relation to your brand's identity, your target audience, and desired perception. And the key thing is their perception. So seek alignment with your team members and strive to get a cohesive understanding of what your brand personality is. This sounds easier than it is, but established brands really struggle with this, but even more so, new brands really struggle with this because they don't have anything to base this on. It's just gut feel.
Yeah, and usually the gut feel of people in the decision, the final say-so positions. It's not necessarily the best, but that's why we make it harder at earlier stages, so that you have that internal consensus among everybody, from the sales team to the people that work in creative to the people in marketing. And you'd be surprised again at the result and the enrichment of the brand that can come out from that earlier hard exercise, but necessary to achieve a truly purposeful position.
That's right. And we have a number of exercises in the P8 program we take clients through when we're talking this through, so that we can actually get, which I'm thinking about, we may have talk about this later on, but anyway, I won't. So, but with those archetypes, we also talk about personality types. So there might be a celebrity or something like that that they can associate with, so that becomes something that people can go, yes, we're blah, whoever that celebrity is. And then people can talk to that personality of that celebrity. And then that helps people in the group go, yeah, I feel like our brand is that kind of personality. So Yeah, but I will get on to the next one here. So obviously looking at ways to do that with your internals. Then there's the validation of this. So this is where you look for ways to listen to feedback. So conduct market research, surveys, which I touched on earlier. I think this might be where you're warming up to Samoa there, and obviously focus groups together from target audience. Now, obviously, depending on where your business at, this will vary, but you need to present a narrowed down list of personality words and evaluate how this resonates with the consumer. This step ensures that you've chosen the words accurately to convey the intended personality traits that resonate with that target audience. So, as I was touching on there, big companies, they do a whole bunch of research around this, and we've seen some tragic examples of this where they've got it totally wrong. But majority of the times, the reason why they're doing that research is to avoid that situation. And I mean, the Bud Light thing that went totally pear-shaped earlier this year. That is a classic example of where they went with what was going on in the market and the trends, not with what. Yeah, exactly, and not what was the values and core of their brand. And coming back full circle with what we talked about in the past, the reason they could do something like that, and that's why this brand, being so old as it was, it struggled to move with the times because it was still using old mentalities. It wasn't understanding that the consumer owned their brand, not them. And so they were trying to force feed.
And the fact that their consumer persona, which is another concept we talked in earlier sessions, is completely and utterly disparate from the brand ambassador they chose to represent them. So there's a conflict of values, there's a conflict of messaging, and so much so that the existing profile of consumer of Bud Light felt completely dishonored, to say it mildly, in how the brand decided to take it forward. And the trend, it blew up in their face and in their stock shares. We're talking about
the fact that the consumer responded with shotguns it gives you an example of how far off they were from
Yeah. Try controlling that brand now. And this is the example, again, that we mentioned in earlier points. 20 years ago, maybe 30 years ago, this would have never happened. The brand would have put out a statement and held that statement in front of the audience, and you'd barely know of the disgruntle that it caused among the audience. But because of social media accessibility and authorship available to today, with anybody with a phone can become an instant content creator, alas, the absolute explosion and blowback that the Bud Light brand is suffering at the moment.
Exactly. Yeah. So, that just gives you a good example of, like, we don't want you to sit there and do nothing, because that's the worst thing you can do as well. You need to be getting constant feedback and validation on what you're trying to do. But you should, through that research, understand that the majority of your new target audience or your current target audience are going to receive certain personality traits that you put out there well, because you've identified with them and they've given you the feedback that says that's what they like. So,
and still on that, the funny thing is that when this happens more with starting brands, we have availability to social media. Everybody's got a few thousands of people in their network, enough to sample some tastes, right? Yep. We're not talking about big, huge global brands, because very few brands are birthed at the global level. And we're talking to small business owners in the majority. So to the small business owners listening to this, it's useful to have a little sneak preview and a taste of what the marketplace immediately around you and your closest circle may look like. And you use social media to ask, how do you think I should go about this? Or what do you think about this product that I have? Or who is interested in a webinar that I created around this topic? These are excellent little teasers, but they're really hooked bait that catch individual fishes one at a time. And it's good to get some momentum, get some education on what the audience looks like, and some money in the till. But then when you want to scale that past your network of friends and family, there are tools such as the ones we're going to mention right now that we didn't mention earlier in the process, that can assist you with that. So we're getting much, much better at not jumping the gun. And the survey tools that we're talking about are very accessible. Some of them have free versions of it. So go right ahead and use, for example, SurveyMonkey. SurveyMonkey is a tool that you can use to audit the audience that you want to serve. And Typeform is another one. Once you start using these tools with a bigger scale, you have a wider sample to make educated decisions around. And when you refine these decisions and keep using those tools to further validate your points, then you have much better positioning. And again, building this back to purpose, you can see how far astray you are from what your purpose is at the beginning of this exercise to where you want to be, and how you can bring it back using those tools.
That's right. So look forward to further chats around that in future episodes. The obvious point here is, now that we've got it out there, let's look at the feedback you get, refine it and finalize it. So based on that feedback you receive, let's look at ways you can refine it and get the list further, eliminate words that don't align with your brand or fail to resonate with the audience. Aim to be concise and impactful. Set words that effectively capture the brand's personality and differentiate it from its competitors. So the best case scenario is you can pull one word out and say, that's what works for me. In most scenarios, it needs a couple of words, and that's what you need to go. The way that generally we look at this approach is that you look at how do you define their identity, and use one word to say, how do you define that? It's language. You look for words how you can do that. The other way is your tone of voice. So what words can you use to say, what is your tone of voice? And then there's the characteristics, or the way that you talk and communicate. Like, so there's these four things that we usually talk about putting words next to, so that they help you communicate a lot better with what you're going for. So, but generally it's
and different people will have different meanings associated to words. To this day, this is a funny example of how the same word may not mean the same to everybody. This was many years ago. I'll put it back to probably 2005 or 4, and I had a client trying to come up with a design. I believe it was for a logo, and this logo was for a business that sold wedding dresses, and they called the logo, they described it as classy, and they wanted to use a very classy font to it. And I was very early in my career back then, but I was wise enough to ask what this means to them, because classy to some people is not the same definition of classy to other. Hence the white trash classy and the the Lamborghini classy, or the 18th century classy. And it turns out that this lady had in her mind a cyberpunk version of what classy meant to me. I was thinking calligraphic style of font usage, and this person was thinking of grungy scratched lettering with ink daubs falling from it, as classy. So always make sure that you define what these words come up, because in the association breakdown and reassembling, you will all find alignment, and you will reset that. You will also all find differences in interpretation, and this is where language serves us best, is to unify these concepts that we take for granted, because they're not all universally known in the same and perceived in the same way.
That's right. Yeah. I think that's a good point to point out, the keywords. Just make sure you put a description beside them, just so that, because even if you do go to the dictionary, sometimes words have 2 or 3 meanings. So you need to make sure that that is the one you want to take, and that everyone's on board with it. So obviously we're talking about, now that you've got to that point, we want to look at ways you integrate and implement. So this is where you make it visible, you made it heard and felt. So one of the things we love working on our clients with is, once the brand personality words are finalized, and look at ways to integrate them across all aspects of the brand's communication strategy. We use these words to guide the brand's messaging, tone of voice, visual identity, content creation, and the overall brand experience. So consistency in delivering this brand's personality across all touch points helps establish a strong, recognizable brand image, which kind of makes this really key to everything we do. So without it, Sim, you with your graphics, you would not know what to do because you don't know where the brand is coming from and what it's trying to communicate. And so visually, you'd have no idea whether you should be, like you just talked about, whether it should be grungy or whether it should be what I would have taken classy as, especially in a wedding environment, a little bit differently in the way that I'm actually gobsmacked that that's what they thought classy was. So, it's a great example of where it can just go horribly wrong if you don't have these in place for us to communicate with what we're doing. And we've worked on a number of projects recently where once we understood, the example I'm going to use is the one we're working on where the client said they want to have a sustainable environmental background for what they do. So we knew straight away what we had to do for that client to help them communicate, sustainable environmental things that, and then because they're in a particular industry, there are other things that in their world, environmental meant something and sustainable.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So,
contextualized. Every concept has its practical applications, and the industry this client is in, being eco-friendly does not necessarily mean the same things. Go to the beach and pick up trash, or wear green and use plastic bags, because that's simply not applicable to what they do. But it does translate into some other practices, materials that they use that we needed to make sure the brand identity reflects in its touch points with the client. So that was one of the solutions that we find to relay this eco-friendliness and sustainability.
That's right. So moving on, that is the last of the steps that we're going to take you through. So this is our coffee cup moment that we want you to take on board. So we want you to remember the process and identify the brand's personality, why it's intuitive and may require periodic reassessment to ensure your relevancy and alignment with the evolving market trends. Please do not take Bud Light as an example. Do the opposite. And because obviously your consumer expectations, if you don't meet them, you may face some major consequences. So what we do each week is we do go into some examples, and keeping in line with what we've touched on each week, I will actually bring this up, and we'll go here with that. That slide sort of works. So look, obviously Apple, innovative, sleek, elegant, cutting edge, user friendly. So I look at those words and I think like that's what they deliver every time you see something they're doing. It always feels like they're trying to innovate. Their designs usually have the word sleek, would be something I would definitely attach to it, and elegance to it. They do communicate cutting edge. I'm not saying everything they do is cutting edge, but generally what they do is they give that perception that it's cutting edge, and clearly user-friendly is something that comes across quite clearly. Do you have any comments on that one, Si, by the way? You're all good with that?
No, they not only the way they create their their products. It's incredible the amazing job they've been able to do throughout the decades. It's not even years anymore, it's decades. And we all have our viewpoints on how good of a marketer Steve Jobs was and how Tim Cook is living up to that expectation or not. But the fact is they keep positioning themselves in a very unique way, not just in the way they create their products, but the way they address the language around the products. Earlier on this week, Chris brought up an example to me that I was studying more and more. And it's really interesting because they don't focus on the same things that every other brand does. You will notice that despite their technical ability to deliver an MP3 player that has some storage capacity, cut that out. They say, your music in your pocket, let's go. That is a tremendous way of packaging their purpose. They don't just provide technicality, savoir-faire, or ability. They plug into your life and make you feel a better person for wearing their brand. This is something that Apple... Apple
Yeah.
does and has done really well. Go on, Chris.
Sorry, I've cut you off there. One of the I think I sent you this week was that video where the guy was talking about the fact that they brand everything that they do now, so that if you're trying to compare their Retina screen with someone else's screen, you can't, because no one else calls their screens Retina screens, right?
Yes.
So you kind of just straight away, when everyone else is saying screens, and then the other one that they've done right now is everyone's calling it a augmented reality or virtual reality.
Yes.
They call it spatial computing, right?
Which
Straight
has
away
nothing
you're like,
to do. Yeah.
Straight away it's different, and you're just like, so they taking on the word innovative and cutting edge and things like that. That's what they're trying to do, but doing it in their way so that it always looks like they're innovating. We can talk all day about Apple, but let's move on to the next one. So we've got Nike as another brand we've been moving through the weeks on. They use athletic, inspiring, determined, empowering, competitive. These are words that they have based their brand on. And if you know Nike, even if you don't wear Nike, if you see a Nike ad, you will instantly say these words marry up with everything you've ever seen about them, because they are always using athletes. They're inspiring. Those athletes never look like they're having fun. They always look determined, and they look like they're being competitive. It's just the nature of what they do. So again, these are why these words can really help you build your brand and the foundations. Now, not everyone's a Coca-Cola drinker, but you do know that they love to use these words in everything they do. So it always feels like that people are refreshed, they're joy, having a joyful time. They feel like it's timeless. It feels like Coca-Cola's been around forever, even though it has. But most of us have not outlived Coca-Cola, so that's why they can get away with that one. Authenticity, I'm not too sure about that one, but it is something that they try to aspire us to look at them and go that, so they don't obviously focus on the sugar and the health benefits of their products.
The tooth decaying properties of their product.
Yeah, they don't focus on that. They look at the enjoyment that the product gives people when they're rotting their teeth. So, yeah, but next one there is Tesla. So Tesla have been really good at being disruptive. I love that word in the middle there. They definitely emulate the futuristic approach to what they do. They love using sustainable in whatever they do. It's clearly visionary and innovative. So these 5 words, if you look at anything Tesla does, you straight away get that, from everything down to the actual product itself to the way they communicate. And clearly it's hard to get past having a leader like Elon Musk. In our generation these days, there's no one like him, and there's no one that is as disruptive as he is, whether it's him tweeting or whether it's him just making a comment. When he does that, markets change, values of businesses go down. Like he is really someone that has that. But again, he is always talking about sustainability in everything he talks about, even AI. So
yeah.
The next one we've touched on in a couple of weeks is Airbnb. So, hospitable, authentic, adventurous, connected, inclusive. These guys, they are a brand that maybe could have used that speaker that Bud Light used, because they are using inclusive in their branding. So that is something where you wouldn't have had the same uproar with them using that kind of spokesperson, because that spokesperson probably is also in the authentic, maybe not hospital, but definitely, in the inclusive part of that. So there's a reason why that brand could go down that pathway. But even myself, as someone that has used Airbnb, all these words resonate with me. I don't think they're too far from what I've experienced when I've played with the brand. All of us jump onto Google, and you can notice here it's, what was their "Don't be evil" is their previous tagline they used to have, or motto. It's clearly they don't do evil, but they just clearly understood that they can't get away from the fact that what they do through the data they collect, it's a bit hard not to. So they've gone down these pathways, which is that you clearly identify Google as being intelligent and informative. It's generally reliable. We all know when we type into Google, we generally get back something that's going to offer an answer, and we always feel like they're innovative in what they're doing. And key one there is accessible. We are on everyone's phone. We're on our wherever we are, there's a way to touch Google in some shape or form. So
they've become a verb. You now just say, just Google it. It's a name, it's a brand, but you now just made it into a verb. YouTube it, Google it.
Yeah, you don't Bing it. You don't Bing it, right? You don't Yahoo it. It's sort of, that's the difference.
That's right.
Yeah. So Patagonia is another brand that we've touched on. Eco-conscious, adventurous, driven, ethical, outdoorsy, sustainable. Like we touched on, if you want to go check back last week's episode or the week's episode, we've always touched on why this matters and what they've done to execute on those, and you'll see the examples. And I'm going to finish on this one because it's very close to the heart of Sim here, the Harley Davidson. Now, this is a brand you've been sort of around a little bit lately. So do these words resonate with what you think the brand is?
They absolutely define it. I'm looking at them and flashes of ads, flashes of visits to Harley stores come up, and they basically define the people that I have in my mind as their audience. It's not just the scrungy outlaw anymore. We're talking about 50-year-olds who have a decent level of life. They still want to be perceived as rebellious, adventurous, get on a bike by themselves on two wheels, go explore, feel the wind in their face. And how iconic do you have to be that you absolutely erase any naming reference to your logo, and everybody knows that logo right now?
That's right.
It's masterful.
Exactly. It's pretty much Harley Davidson are in the same genre of things such as Kleenex tissues, Mack trucks, those kind of things. They're just, if you think of a bike, you generally go for Harley Davidson as a name before you mention a bunch of other brands. Even though there are plenty of other brands that are quite well known in that area, it is something that pops up. Unless you're in your I guess your stage where you're doing research and marketing to this for all personal reasons, but it's something that you're seeing it differently. But others that just don't know or want to ride a bike, Harley Davidson, those things they would be able to say them straight away without even having ridden a bike. So
Yes.
So look, everyone, I guess we're coming to the end. We've cracked the 40 mark this week, so we've gone right into it. So there you go. So look, I do appreciate everyone that's been on board. As touched on, we're always here to help you amplify your brand, and if you want to reach out to us, we would love to hear from you. Sim, I guess I'll give you a chance to give your final sign off for this week's episode.
Yes, I urge everybody to find their purpose, because that will make you stand or fall, for better, for worse. This is one of the most crucial elements that may sometimes miss from long-standing brands. It's at the basis. It's the core. It doesn't show itself off every day, but it definitely creates repercussions in everyday's activities and businesses' lives.
Exactly, yeah. So thanks everyone for joining us this week. Hopefully you've gained some insights into how to find your brand's personality and steps you can take to find it. If not, look forward to reaching out to us and having a chat and helping you amplify your brand. Until next week, catch you then.